allow the beautification committee to be able to, plan out a little bit longer of how, what they want to propose and what they want to do, and to allow us to be able to carry funds over from year to year if they don't spend everything that they request. The next line item is the copy machine. The copy machine we have as, replacing the entire machine at about 10 to 20,000, depending on what two machines are replaced. So what we have right now is we're only contributing 10,000 for 2020, and that's assuming that our machine lasts throughout 2020. If for any reason we believe that number to be different after we look at some more concrete prices to replace to have the exact same machine, that number will be updated for the 2021 budget. The next line item is the laundry equipment repair and replacement. We estimate that the total equipment would be replaced for about $48,000. So we're going to contribute $4,800 a year for the next 10 years, and that should cover any replacements of the laundry equipment. The next line item is any computer, telephone equipment that may need to be replaced. A server could cost $5,000 to $10,000. Some of the phone systems could cost several thousand. We have that being contributed over the next 3 years at $20,000 a year, bringing our total to $1.676 million to be contributed to reserves. Oh, do I have any questions regarding the budget?
All right. We're going to try to maximize the number of people that can be heard in a reasonable time frame. So each speaker will, of course, get their 3 minutes, but we're only going to have one trip to the microphone so that as many people as possible can get to speak, and we can move along to the vote. All right?
Yeah.
Sir.
Okay, just clarification. On the roads, the 15 million, now the previous one was for 5 million, so I can understand some inflation, but is it a little bit different approach that we had the last one, which we already had problem a few months after we did the job, that we already had cracks?
Are you talking about the piping and irrigation replacement?
No, the roads. The 15
the
million.
roads. So one of the things that we have upcoming, I believe either by the end of 2019 or 2020, is a reserve study to get concrete numbers of what the current cost would be to do all of these items and to update this list for the 2021 budget. So as of right now, that's the number that we've been carrying forward over the last few years. What the cost to replace the roads now, I'm not too sure of. I don't know if there's advanced technology that's brought the cost down or brought the cost up.
No, okay. All I really want to know is the approach. Is this going to look for a better approach than we had the last one? Because the last one, when we had 5 million, the roads were like cracked with a few months. So is the budget looking for a better job, so to speak, not just inflation?
All right, Sebastian, let me just inject something here. The last major job was an overlay. We won't be doing any more overlays. We've done too many already. The next major road repair will be to dig down, recompact the base, and it will be, all that reflective cracking will go away that you're talking about, because we're gonna core it out, and that's why there'll be significant additional expense. Who's next? Oh,
all right. I'm hiding underneath there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask. Number one, I thought that you had to give the budget 10 days before to the public. You only gave it maybe 3 or 4 days. According to the bylaws, this is illegal. You shouldn't even be having a vote today. Number one. Number two, I'm curious about security. it was brought to my attention that the delegate assembly never took a vote on the security contract. Has anybody got something to say about that before I ask my next question? No. My next question is security expense 921,906 to 10,064. That's not an increase of 5%, Sebastian. That's an increase of much more. How do you figure that? And I'd like all my questions answered if possible, please.
Sure. Can you go over that last question? Which-
Number 7,300, security expense, $921,000. 2020 budget, $1,064,000. Usually is a little increase of maybe 3% in the contract. This certainly comes out to maybe 10%. How do you figure that? And wait a minute. Did we ever vote on a security contract in the delegate assembly? I don't remember ever doing it, and I looked back over all my records. Somebody mentioned it to me, so I went back and looked. The delegate assembly never okayed the security contract. Nobody's answering. I guess
Well-
nobody did.
No, I was waiting for you to finish. So for the $889,627 2019 budget, we believed that it was going to increase based on the new contract to $934,104. The total security for 7,300 includes the investigations. So just using 7,301, that's what I believe the difference would be. So the 2019 estimate may be a little bit under, but again, it was just an estimate based off of what our prior months that we've spent.
Did anybody want to answer my other two questions?
First of all, on the timeline, and you were present at every finance committee meeting. You
No,
had
I wasn't at the.
notification-
I wasn't at the.
notification.
I wasn't at the. I wasn't at
as-
the last meeting.
As this budget was being built.
I wasn't. I
Over-
wasn't at the last meeting.
That was your choice. Anyone in here,
Say I was at every meeting.
anyone has the option of attending these meetings. None of this.
What has that got
you
to
had-
do with
you-
what? I mean,
That was your
according.
first question.
The first question was according to the bylaws of our associations, is that there should be 10 days' notice given before the budget is presented.
And you had
You're given 3 days.
wrong.
How many days are you giving?
If you look at corporation law, Myron, any regularly scheduled meeting needs no further notification. This is a standard meeting. The bylaws are clear. The budget will be presented for approval to delegate assembly in October. You know this in January, February, March,
It
So
says-
anyone could have attended the finance committee meetings. They were open. Not only were they open, they
You
were
didn't answer my
televised.
question.
That's the answer to your question. There was more than 10 days' notice, much more. Okay?
Okay.
There were weeks and weeks' notice.
Okay, Mr. Israel, how come you never okayed the security contract with the delegate assembly?
Well, I believe this was voted on all the way through.
You have a
However,
copy of that?
however,
I'd like to see that copy because I don't have it.
I have,
The last
I
8
have,
months or so, I don't have it.
not being clairvoyant, I couldn't have a copy of a question that I didn't know you were going to ask. Security contract, I believe, went through the whole process. And by the way, it's not a new contract, it's a renewal
So it doesn't have to be
of an
voted on?
existing contract.
You're saying it doesn't have to be voted on if it's a renewal?
As a delegate, you can make a motion as to whether it should be voted
You
on.
know, I admire you, Mr. Israel. You change the laws as we go along.
Yeah.
You're terrific.
Right.
Meanwhile, you never voted on this. I want the delegates to know you never had a voice in voting on the security contract.
Right. All right.
Time is up.
Thank you. I just finished just in time.
Thank you, Myron.
Good morning, ma'am.
Barbara,
Good morning, Barbara Cornish, Chatham. I'm looking at the budget.
Now, I went to all 3 budget meetings, okay? I want to start off, before I waste time here, I want to thank Sebastian. He's done a great job for this community, and he cares, let me tell you. Number 1, the excursion buses. On the last budget I received at the last budget meeting, the 3rd one, it showed 1 excursion bus. I don't know if it's big or small. I'd like to know, since there's no side notes on this budget like you had on the others, how many excursion buses are in that price, big or small?
Okay.
Under this number, it includes both excursions.
2 excursion buses or a big and a small, which one?
I'm not sure. Yeah, 2 full-size.
Okay, thank you. The next question,
Barbara, one other issue. If the team decides to use the buses that are provided by the vendor doing the service of providing our people passage, if they decide to use 3 of their buses, it would still be under one of the prices of $640.
right,
So they can also do as many as 3 in place of the 2.
right. I don't care if you use
They
2
now-
or 3. I
They now,
wanna make
they now understand that, and they may very well be doing that. That gives 75 people a lift rather
And-
than just the 25.
And that's fine, I'm not questioning that, I'm questioning if there's money allocated for
I'm
it,
just
so you don't
making
have
the
to come
point.
back and ask us for more money.
It is allocated and even better now than it has been.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Another thing was, I know at the budget meetings, many times, people have brought up about the ambulance contract. Now, the ambulance contract is roughly $11,000 and change a month we pay, comes about $133,000 a year, Sebastian, roughly?
137,000 a year
$137,000.
for about 150 patients.
Since we had 3 meetings of the budget, and this was brought up a long time ago, that it was never brought by anybody in UCO to the floor to drop this contract. And you would not be paying any increase, whether $1 or $1.16, you would have a negative, and you would have no raise whatsoever, because it doesn't service the whole community. Believe me, I've worked on it. As far as the security, I don't want to go into whether it was brought to this floor or not, because these delegates should know if it was or wasn't. I looked it up. You want to see me later? I'll be glad to tell you. My question is, Sebastian, a 5% increase to security, how was that? And I want to just say one thing. I like Platinum. It's the best security company we've had. But if money is allocated, how come the delegates don't know how much money of that 5% is allocated? Is it 5% up front or 2, and 1? How is it done?
It's spread out over the 3 years at their discretion, so they can do it all in the first year, or they can do it all in the second year, all in the third year, or divide it as 113, 311. It's at their discretion for the increases for the security guards' pay.
So we allowed them to make the decision whether the 5% should be front-loaded or not. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right.
Just, I would vote this budget down.
All right. Les?
Hi, Les Rivkin, Stratford J. It bothers me that the price of electricity is going up, and it seems to me this is short-term thinking rather than long-term thinking. I would like to see whoever it is at UCO investigate the possibility of solar for all of the buildings that we're involved with, and sustainability would be much better, and we wouldn't have to worry about long-term prices going up.
I'm going to
No, I think that was a very good idea, and we could definitely look into it.
Yeah, this was brought up before, Les. There's a huge front-load charge, as you're well aware. However, over the long run, it would probably amortize out. We need to do an analysis. You're absolutely right. And I've suggested that to some of the buildings with large flat roof surfaces. You need to do the analysis to see how it'll work out. I don't know if the electric company is still buying the excess. Do you know, Sebastian?
I believe they're buying the excess, but there was legislation passed, I believe in 2017 or 18, that restricted the amount, and
Yeah.
there's some next era solar issues still going on, but they are still, I believe, doing federal rebates, and I believe the CRA is also sometimes kicking in the money to help fund those projects for the long term.
Listen, there's no doubt that this is a good idea that just needs to be fleshed out. Thank you.
Dave, may I make a comment?
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Rifkin, we are aware of the need to conserve electricity. One of the things we've been doing at UCO is slowly converting all of the streetlights on the property to LEDs, which is making a significant savings in energy usage. By the end of this year, all of the lights will be LEDs, and you won't see any sodium lights after that.
All right, Olga.
My pages are a little out of order, so it's difficult for me to get this answered. Sebastian, the UCO reporter, can you give me the expense number and the profit number?
For 2020, based on our estimates, we have advertising at $94,056, and under the expense, we have $94,056. And we have that one as net zero. The reporter shouldn't be costing UCO any money. And so one of the things that we talked about, I believe at the last budget meeting or the meeting before that, was about breaking down all of the costs for the reporter to be able to get a better idea of where we can try to maximize surplus and not cause a deficit.
It absolutely blows my mind. It's probably 1 trillion to 1 how you could get an exact figure on an expense and a profit. I just can't figure it out. Am I stupid or what? Can anybody else figure that out?
No.
Is that called fudgeting the numbers?
No, I don't believe so. I think that what it accounts for is the fact that the reporter could cost as much to produce it as what's brought in
It
advertising
could.
revenue.
We need actual numbers, and we're not getting them. We don't know whether to keep the reporter if it's losing money, making us a profit. We can't answer that with this.
Under the budget number, that would be true that we don't see a surplus for the 2020 budget. However, I think that the steps that we're doing over the next few months to really dig down and figure out where all the cost is per item, to be able to get a idea of every outflow that goes on and what the per advertising cost is, so that we can figure out if prices need to increase, different avenues.
You're giving me
like that.
a lot of stuff that says absolutely nothing. We need to know whether the UCO reporter is making a profit or costing us money. Once upon a time, the UCO reporter used to give to UCO approximately $40,000 a year. Now, is it costing us money? And if it is, why? We need to know this. We're not finding it out with these numbers. Thank you.
Okay.
And I don't disagree, which is why, we're trying to look into that.
All right. I mean, I will just mention that since you brought this up, very shortly, in fact, I think Monday morning, we're going to be talking to a new company, which, if the collars and cuffs match, may save us a few $1,000s on the printing. The UCO reporter is not, I repeat, not losing money. All right, sir.
Jim Reed, Coventry K. On the fence money that he
A little closer to the mic, Jim.
on the fence money, is that including the sidewalk?
I don't believe that includes the sidewalk. It's just for the cost of the fence or the fencing material,
When they do
the perimeter fencing.
when they do the sidewalk, are they going to take the sidewalk up, or are they going to make the sidewalk wider instead of?
The sidewalk's going to be opened up, Jim, to 5 feet. The whole sidewalk is going to be taken up and recast.
Wouldn't it be a lot cheaper to just add to the sidewalk that's there?
Will it be what?
Wouldn't it be a lot cheaper to just add to the sidewalk that's already there?
No,
No?
no, that's tricky. To level that out? No,
No.
no.
Good morning.
All right.
Carolyn Speranza.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Carolyn Speranza from Sheffield Q. I'll try to make this very brief. First, I want to thank everyone for their volunteering. It's not an easy job, as all the board members and delegates know, as well as the committee members, but there are certain questions that I guess we need answers to. My first question, I guess, is for Sebastian. Thank you for all of
ma'am.
your hard work. When I spoke at the last meeting and asked Donald about what, if any, plans were in place or being put in place for the restoration or replacement or whatever of all of the perimeter damage that was done between FPL and others. And Donald, you mentioned that there were plans in place and that in fact there was almost $1 million being put into reserves to take care of that. Sebastian, where in the reserves is that $1 million item contained?
We're talking about the damaged perimeter fencing on the north and south boundaries after the FPL work.
Fencing as well as hopefully replacement of landscaping.
Yeah, at the moment, we're just concentrating on fencing, obviously. We're looking at about a $60,000 price tag to repair those fences, and that's been budgeted in as well. You'll hear about this at the next infrastructure meeting, where I should have three proposals.
Okay, so that item is not contained in the reserve
This
items
is-
that
this is
we
a-
have today.
Yeah.
Okay, secondly, the ambulance coverage, the ambulance insurance contract that we have, there was a little bit of confusion. We recently had an owner who had need of 911 services for a life-threatening situation. She got a bill. And when she called to find out what to do with the bill, they said, well, if it's life-threatening and you're going through 911, then you need to submit that to your insurance company. So that brought up the point of, well, what the heck is our ambulance coverage covering? And then we were told that was for non-life-threatening, if you broke your leg or whatever. I then made a second call to UCO, and the woman that I spoke with, I don't recall her name, indicated, oh, no, if you get a bill, you just send it to UCO, and we take care of it. Which is correct?
All right. I don't want to bore people. I've made the speech a few times. If you get transported by the Little Red Wagon, the Rock, they're going to send you a bill. You turn the bill over, you fill in the blanks, and you send it to your insurance company. You send it to your insurance company at plus or minus any deductible that your plan may have. They'll pay. You may end up with a copay. I've seen as much as $250. All right? Now, if it's BLS, basic life support, usually the AMR truck will be right behind the fire truck. It used to be they just listened to the radio. And in the case of basic life support, the AMR wagon will transport you.
Okay, so I know personally, I was totally confused with this whole thing, and again, I wondered, well, what are we paying monthly for? I was sleeping peacefully at night knowing that if I ever needed an ambulance, I've been paying for that monthly, and I believe that most people, certainly in my association, and I'm sure others, are of the same misconception. It almost would make sense to try to calculate how many times have we actually used the service that's covered by our contract, and does it make more sense to not have the contract, but pay on an as-needed basis?
All right, this is, I think, the principal issue that Barbara just brought up. We're paying $11,000 a month, and maybe there were 150 transports
Non-emergent.
in a year. So is that something that's worth continuing to pay for?
Yeah, but
I want to point out, any delegate can make a motion that line go away, but it's not clear to me what the general consensus will be. Some people will say, oh, we don't need that. But some people have made use of that AMR service, and so I think there'll be vigorous debate. It's probably the principal reason it hasn't been thrown out of this budget. But it's certainly something that Barbara just brought up, and it's bad enough in her opinion that she says she can't vote for the budget. But believe me, there's two sides to that question.
I'm sure there are, and I think it would be very helpful to all of the owners in Century Village and renters, because they're covered as well, if perhaps an article could be put into the Yucca Reporter specifically explaining what is and is not covered, because I really do believe that a lot of people don't understand what they're paying for, and if it's there for them when they need it. That would be very helpful. That's just a suggestion. My final question is, at one of the last meetings...
3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Yeah, you only get 3 minutes up, and
This will be very brief?
no.
Okay, I'll be back next month. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.
David, I know I spoke.
Gentlemen, one bite at the apple.
I wanted to just.
Now, I will point out that between you and Mr. Grossman at the Finance Committee meeting, had the microphone 18 times and made that meeting run way over time.
Good.
You get one bite at the apple.
Let me alleviate just with the ambulance.
One bite at the apple.
The ambulance. I had an experience.
One bite at the apple, sir. Are there any other speakers?
I think so.
You've already been up, Ed, have you not?
No.
Oh,
you're losing,
how could
David.
we miss
David, wait
you,
a
Ed?
second. You're
Yes,
losing it.
Ed, yes.
And by the way, we should have only one bite if we had more participation. I'm going to start off with definitely do not vote for this budget. And there are substantial reasons. Since I'm limited, I'm going to take one which is an absolute must, whether you're attuned or not from a financial standpoint. Every budget is supposed to be compared to the actual. And the difference between the actual and the budget has to be allocated between either going to reserve